Hey everybody, it's Rapid. Welcome to the channel, and today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at and rating one of the most common characters in the game of X-Wing, and we're going to see which versions are the best and which versions are not so much. Before we get started though, I do want to say that as you probably noticed, I am kind of working on both doing long-form editing, so if anybody has any ideas on content that they want to see or they feel that other creators just aren't providing, just drop it down in the comments and I'll see what I can do. No promises, but I will look at and try to get to what does seem viable. So today we're going to be looking at and rating various versions of the Sabine Wren character that are in the game of X-Wing. She's in the Rebels TV series, she's a Mandalorian, and she's part of the Ghost crew. Now, Sabine Wren currently has 7 versions in the game of X-Wing, and of those, 4 of them are not legal for competitive play, so that puts her tied at the most versions of any character in the game, and she has the most versions that are not currently legal for competitive play, although to be fair, 2 of those are just in ships that haven't been released yet, and one of them is for Epic. We'll briefly touch on our first 2 Sabines, otherwise known as not appearing in this ranking list, as Sabine Wren, the Epic version, that has an interesting mechanic where you pass the Darksaber around, but ultimately Epic is not a very well supported format right now. And additionally, you have the Sabine Wren Gunner. The Sabine Wren Gunner requires you to equip a secondary weapon and inflict damage cards, and the only end result is that you get to remove 1 stress per damage card. This effect is just a little too niche and inconsistent to really be useful on any level. Number 5. Here we have Sabine Wren in the Lancer class pursuit craft. Sabine Wren in the Lancer has the pilot ability where while you defend, if the attacker is in your turret arc at 0 to 2, you may add a focus result to your die results. This means she can actually go above the Lancer's normal 2 agility, which is fairly significant given that the Lancer does have 10 health, so this can be a fairly durable pilot. This seems like it would be rather useful, except for one small problem. Scum is not really hurting on good medium or large base pilots. They aren't even really hurting on good medium or large base pilots on the Lancer pursuit craft. So this just ends up being a middling pilot ability with a middling initiative and is little more than binder fodder in most cases. She's not, strictly speaking, hurting you, but she's not really doing you any favors either. Number 4. Next up, we have Sabine Wren in the TIE Fighter. Her pilot ability is before you can activate, you can perform a barrel roll or a boost action. Now, this is actually pretty significant because the overwhelming majority of cards that have an effect like this are actually on the ban list. These are things like advanced sensors or supernatural reflexes. However, one big difference between all of those and this is Sabine Wren's pilot ability. This is everything she does. Unlike being able to throw supernatural reflexes on Kylo Ren, so you get a high initiative Force user that also has this effect, this is the only thing Sabine Wren does. That's not necessarily a bad thing, as Sabine Wren does have an exceptional amount of mobility. Being in a TIE Fighter, they have generally good dials, and adding a booster barrel roll before you move does help that out. The big problem with this pilot really comes down to the 3-point ship slot for Rebels. You have Ezra Bridger, you have 3 3-point A-Wings, and overall, Sabine Wren just doesn't offer a huge amount of advantages to any of those things. It's also kind of hard to imagine how you would adjust the points to make her relevant versus those other things, because the biggest thing competing with her are obviously the A-Wings that, with vector thrusters, can basically do the same thing she can do but slightly better and with a better health bar. Overall, this results in a pilot that, if she were in another faction, might actually see a good bit of play, but just because she's in a faction that is inundated with ships that have essentially the same utility, she doesn't really have a lot to offer to the faction and is unlikely to see play anytime soon. Number 3. Next up, we have Sabine Wren in the A-Wing. She has the pilot ability that says, while you defend or perform an attack, if the attack is range 1 and you're in the enemy ship's front arc, you may change one of your results to an evade or a hit result. Of note with this pilot ability, it does not say primary attack, so you can use it with things like proton rockets. This is a pretty cool ability if you can set it up, and the if you can set it up is kind of where you start running into problems with the ship. She's only initiative 3, and that doesn't really allow her to aggressively use this ability against an enemy. It's really only if the enemy wants to get within range in a lot of cases. The other problem is that this is a 4-point A-Wing, and there are a lot of other really good 4-point A-Wings, such as Wedge, Tycho, or Jake. So she's in a pretty competitive slot, and she's honestly the worst of the batch. Now, if Atomic Mass Games were to adjust some of her loadout points, or maybe play around with the points of some people around her, she might be more viable. But at this point in the game, she's just kind of competing with a bunch of better ships. That being said, she has seen at least some experimentation, so she's currently ahead of the other two pilots that really haven't seen any use at all. Number 2. Now we start getting into the really good stuff. This is the Sabine Wren crew card. So at the start of the game, you place an ion, jam, stress, and tractor token on the card, and then after a ship suffers the effect of a friendly bomb, you can remove one of those tokens to give them a matching token. This is a really bonkers effect, because you can turn a fairly modest 1 damage from something like a seismic charge into a tractor token that repositions the enemy and reduces their defense dice, or an ion token that cripples them for the next turn, or if they're already stressed, give them a stress token and put them in a really bad way. This card allows you to translate basically hitting a ship with almost any bomb into a destroy target ship in some cases, and you get to pick and choose what you apply to the ship. The biggest thing that has really held the Sabine Wren crew back throughout her entire history in 2.0 has been Rebels haven't had very good bombers in 2.0. The only really viable bombers has been the K-Wing, and the K-Wing never got reprinted, so it's only ever seen very limited experimentation in competitive play at times when they weren't as strict about not allowing reprinted ships in competitive play. This is, also as a useful piece of trivia, the only Sabine card that is outright banned. It is still a very good card and a very powerful card. It could be a lot better if Rebels actually had more viable bombing strategies, but considering that it's banned, we probably won't get to see that anytime soon. Number 1. And for our number 1 slot today, we have the Sabine Wren that is comfortably one of the most powerful right now, although not currently legal for competitive play because this isn't a ship that hasn't been released yet. This is Sabine Wren in the attack shuttle. Now, her pilot ability is the exact same as the TIE Fighter, and you might be confused for thinking, like, why is this pilot just better? Well, the big thing comes if you look at her bottom linked action, the barrel roll into the red evade. So, because her pilot ability allows her to perform a barrel roll, she can then use the linked action to tie a red evade onto that before she activates. And then she activates, executes a blue maneuver, and now she still has an action left to do a focus. This is Sabine Wren performing every action on her action bar, essentially every turn, with no upgrades and no external support. Just 3 actions every turn. In addition, the ship also has a 3-attack gun, which is pretty relevant. The only thing that has really held it back is the low initiative is not the best, but also 2 agility and 4 health is not the best. Then again, if you have a focus and evade every turn, you can really push that 4 health pretty far. This ship also has some pretty interesting combos with talents. For example, you have Juke, where you can use the evade you're getting every turn to reduce the enemy's dice, or you also have a Debris Gambit, where you can make the evade white. And if you make the evade white, you don't even have to do a blue maneuver. You can do white maneuvers or even red maneuvers. It doesn't matter. And you will still get the barrel roll and the evade off of it. Overall, the ship has had some of the most competitive success out of any Sabine Wren. Well, the most competitive success in 2.0 out of any Sabine Wren, but we don't talk about the other Sabine Wren. But it has been the most successful, and it will be interesting to see what happens when or if Atomic Mass Games eventually re-releases the attack shuttle, and what happens with this pilot, because she does have an ability that has gotten several ships banned in the past, and is just in general pretty good and pretty efficient. She was often referred to as a pocket X-Wing, and combined with her exceptional action economy, feels like she might be an interesting challenge for AMG to get right without costing her into oblivion. That will conclude our videos for today. I hope you all enjoyed it, found it educational, had a good time. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe, and if you have any ideas, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'm going to check them out. I may or may not be able to get to them. I can't make any promises, but I will definitely read them. Have a nice day, everybody.